Hey there, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Musa Jallo, and in today's video, I'm gonna be reacting to a video by Oogie, and the video is entitled How South Africa Broke Rugby in the Southern Hemisphere. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. I saw like in my analytics, like 90% of those who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you're like one of those people in the 90%, consider subscribing to the channel. But with no further delay, let's get into the reaction.
South Africa's decision to withdraw from Super Rugby and their inevitable departure from SANZAAR was driven by a combination of factors. The problem is this move triggered the rapid downfall of rugby throughout the entire Southern Hemisphere. As the game surged in the Northern Hemisphere, it slowly declined in the South. Before I get into any more detail, let's take a look at why did South Africa leave Super Rugby.
I need to understand something before going any further in this video. Like if you say like Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere, right? Because I know football very well, so I'm gonna make a comparison to football. So like, does it mean like the confederation, like for example, like the African Confederation, or the Asian Confederation, or like the European Confederation? Because like if that is the case, then I don't know. That's pretty weird, because like for example, like a team in Europe, it is possible technically to like leave the European League and like join like the Asian Confederation, but it's not just something you just like wake up and do like easily. It's like something like really so difficult. But my question is, the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, does it refer to like the different confederation if you like compare it to football?
After decades of Super Rugby, competing against club teams from Australia and New Zealand, then Argentina and Japan, there was a lot of different reasons that contributed to their decision. Firstly, South African teams always faced geographic and time zone challenges. They required more long distance travel than their Australian and New Zealand counterparts, and constant problems for players and fans trying to adapt to the variety of time zones. Over the years leading up to this decision, many articles would come out describing the challenges South African players would go through, such as being away for months at a time and having to wake up in the early hours of the morning just to contact family members.
Yeah, that is weird actually. It's not weird, but it's hard. Like that is like really hard. Like if your family, they are all in like a different time zone. So like imagine if it's like 7 a.m. where you are, it's like maybe 12 p.m. to your family. So if you want to talk to them, you have to like stay up late, or they have to stay up late for them to talk to you. Like I kind of understand.
Understandably, the physical and mental drain this took on players made it difficult for South African Super Rugby franchises to retain their top tier players, who would often take up opportunities in Europe and Japan. The time zone challenges for players were just as difficult for fans. By South Africa joining European-based competitions, they could expand their television audience in a bigger market and ultimately make more money. Plus, there was a lot of South Africans already living abroad in European nations.
But like when I talk about like the South African franchises, right? I'm guessing it's like referring to like club teams, like maybe like the way they have like in American football, they have like franchises. I'm guessing that's what he's referring to. So like if they say you're in the Southern Hemisphere, doesn't mean like you play, there is a league for all the teams like in the Southern Hemisphere. Like maybe like the New Zealand and like South Africa and like Australia, do they have like their own leagues that the club teams play amongst each other? Or is it like for the country team, because I'm really so confused now.
The pressure to become more financially stable really heated up when the Cheetahs and the Kings were kicked out of Super Rugby in 2017.
Okay. I'm guessing like this whole stuff with like the northern and southern hemisphere, it have to do with like the club teams. So it's like a confederation. Like the UEFA Confederation, for example.
On top of this, South Africa had a failed World Cup bid and was sitting in around $3 million Australian in debt. There was also a massive decline in profit for South African rugby year on year, and this had to be linked to the underwhelming results in Super Rugby. Everyone was dominated by New Zealand teams for the most part, which slowly killed interest for fans. South Africa only managed to secure 3 Super Rugby titles, Australia clinched onto 4, and New Zealand, well, they had 17 under their belt. In fact, every New Zealand team had won a Super Rugby title, while the Bulls were the only South African side to win one. As time went on, an increase in media pressure and articles came out, making it clear a move to the north would draw in more interest and be more competitive for the South African franchises. It would also allow the Springboks to not have to compare players playing in 2 different hemispheres when selecting their squads. They would be able to focus on the best players throughout European competitions. By now, the stars were starting to align. A move to the north would see more interest from fans, better time zones, better player welfare, and a boost to the international side. But South African rugby didn't budge. They actually remained loyal to the alliance despite the lack of direction, failed expansion, and confusing conference system led by SANZAAR.
Yeah, it is really confusing. Aussie Conference, New Zealand Conference, and South African Conference. Wow.
Now, it's not clear why South Africa didn't jump onto the opportunities in Europe sooner, but it's probably because the results on the field were still impressive. The Lions were having a good run of results in Super Rugby. They managed to secure the Rugby Championship and went on to win the World Cup. While sitting on top of the rugby world, no one expected South Africa to change their winning formula. That was until the COVID pandemic. Initially adamant to stay in Super Rugby, once countries went into lockdown, everyone was scrambling to find a format that would keep national interest. With all the uncertainty around how the competition could continue to run, New Zealand Rugby went ahead and announced they were exploring the possibilities of running a trans-Tasman competition with Australia. It was this moment that proved to be the final straw for South African rugby. Failing to be consulted and feeling on the outer, they made the decision to withdraw from Super Rugby altogether.
So like for those of you guys who like really follow rugby, like the Northern Hemisphere today and the Southern Hemisphere, which of those two areas is like more competitive, like for example in football we have teams from Europe that we know like they are the best, they have like the top best five leagues in Europe. So like is it like the same like those things in the Northern Hemisphere, are they like way better than the teams in the Southern Hemisphere? Or is it just like I don't know, but like my point is like which of the hemisphere is like better today than the other one?
Despite the strong rumours for years about seeking to leave Super Rugby, South Africa still heavily blames their departure from the competition on New Zealand. Was this the perfect excuse for South Africa to finally leave a struggling Super Rugby competition, or were they left with no choice? Either way, the impact it's had on the rest of the alliance can't be underestimated. Super Rugby hasn't been able to rebuild any interest in the new competition format, where the United Rugby Championship has boomed, with the South African sides being a key part of this success. While Super Rugby sides have struggled to retain players, South African teams have actually been able to bolster their squads and retrieve many European players back to their clubs. At an international level, Australia, New Zealand and Argentina have all underperformed. Gone are the days of Southern Hemisphere rugby being the powerhouse globally. Northern Hemisphere teams aren't only winning games, but they're playing bloody entertaining footy as well. And South Africa's defection is just a huge reason for the international playing field.
So like you answer my question actually, so like that means like right now the Northern Hemisphere they are doing way better than the Southern Hemisphere. But I'm guessing it wasn't always the case, but still man, this I found like really so fascinating, like and I'm really so excited for this World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. I want to try my best to like try to watch at least like few games, like to see how it's like in action.
Evening out. The All Blacks and Wallabies have lower quality competition to prepare their players for the demands of international rugby, and there's nowhere near as much travel or time zone demands needed, which are kind of essential skills for international players. However, with all this said, the worst could still be yet to come. A major cloud still remains over South Africa staying in SANZAAR altogether. There's growing opinion that South Africa might leave the Rugby Championship, which is the only thing keeping them connected to Southern Hemisphere rugby, or maybe their geographical location.
Alright everybody, I kid.
With only 2 more years left on their current contract, it's looking more and more likely they'll be wanting to compete in a modified Six Nations. A move which you would think the powers of European rugby would embrace. Think about it, in 8 Rugby World Cups, England are the only Northern Hemisphere team to win one. Adding the Springboks in as a regular fixture could only improve World Cup preparation. Also, South African players will have a bigger audience in Europe, and South African fans will be more familiar with players from Europe due to the United Rugby Championship. Throw in all the financial bonuses of a larger market, and it makes just as much sense as leaving Super Rugby. If this does happen, the 3 countries remaining in SANZAAR, Australia, Argentina and New Zealand, would have some huge challenges financially and structurally moving forward. So, what do you think South Africa should do? Let me know below. Thanks for watching.
If I'm being honest with you, like this whole thing about the Northern and Southern Hemisphere, I don't really get it now. But like, if there's a video on YouTube that like explain like how this whole thing's working about the hemisphere, like please put it in the comment section below. I will try my best to like go and watch the video and try to understand. If I can react to it, I'll react to it also. But like, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you do, remember to like it, comment down below. Consider subscribing to the channel. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.